Good afternoon. Welcome to our UpSkill Works Forum series, where we engage business and community leaders, policymakers, and leading thinkers on the key workforce issues our region confronts. I'm Peter Beard, and I lead Greater Houston Partnership's UpSkill Houston initiative that partners with employers, educational leadership, and community-based organizations to strengthen the talent pipeline our region's employers need and to help Houstonians connect to good jobs that increase economic opportunity and prosperity. Before we get to our guest, I want to do several things. First, I'd like to share with you some important perspectives about what we're seeing related to the COVID crisis in the region, because we continue to be at a critical inflection point. Second, I'd like to review a couple housekeeping details and acknowledge the underwriters of the UpSkill Works Forum series. As many of us know, we are seeing in the local and national news and looking at the data coming out of the Texas Medical Center, that we're in a critical space here in Houston as it relates to COVID-19. As you can imagine, the partnership leadership talks with the TMC leaders on a daily basis, and their tone continues to be a very serious concern as they begin using their ICU surge bed capacity. And the trend does not seem to be changing, although it may be moderating a little bit. Our local leaders, including the mayor and the judge, have added their voice to this serious issue. We are finding, what we are finding is that while businesses are very strict in their protocols with employees coming back to work, it's the behavior outside of work that is putting them at risk, which then in turn puts their coworkers at risk. We did well for so long, but we also know there is quarantine fatigue and cabin fever. We all want to stay open. We want the reopening to be successful and sustainable. Last weekend was 4th of July, and we are probably about 10 days away from being in an unsustainable surge situation, which means the hospitals will have overwhelmed their normal surge capacity and will start placing patients in non-traditional rooms. As we know, this virus has about a 14-day lag in seeing cases go critical in the hospital setting. The actions we take today have a direct impact on where we are 2 weeks from now. The easiest way to protect your family, friends, and coworkers is to do 5 simple things. 40% of the people infected with the virus never show any symptoms, but they can still spread the virus. That is why it's important to observe these simple practices. Social distance. Maintain a distance of at least 6 feet from others and avoid being in groups larger than 10 individuals. Face masks. We know wearing a face mask in public helps everybody. Wash your hands frequently, clean and disinfect frequently, touch surfaces daily, and test. If you are showing signs of symptoms or have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive, you need to get tested. If you do test positive, to protect your loved ones, isolate yourself and let those you have come into contact with know about your positive test. This is not something to be embarrassed about. It is a responsible action to take, because while formal government contact tracing programs continue to expand, the process is slow and the system is being overwhelmed by new cases. The sooner your friends, family, co-workers, and others know about a positive test, the quicker they can get tested themselves and isolate if need be. Let's take care of each other. We know these are key practices to protect ourselves, our families, our friends, and other Houstonians. Please join me in being serious about them. Finally, several weeks ago, the partnership issued a statement asking employers to strongly consider shifting back to a work-from-home policy for employees who can do so successfully. We are attempting to minimize the amount of contact points, and this seems prudent given the current transmission rate. If you need additional information about how to reopen safely, you can check the partnership's updated WorkSafe page. The partnership has developed 15 WorkSafe principles to provide guidance to companies and organizations as they reopen. And we've also curated industry best practices from trade associations and other guidance to help businesses develop sector-specific plans to minimize the risk of transmission of COVID in the workplace. As I opened today, tomorrow and the coming weeks, we are at an inflection point, and I ask that you do what you can as leaders to ensure these important messages get across. And now for the housekeeping details. As you can all see, all of you are muted and your videos are turned off for the entirety of the webinar. Please do not use the chat function for Q&A. This will not be moderated for questions. You can use the chat function to connect with our production team if you're having any issues. If you have questions for Courtney or Dale, you should use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and this will be moderated. I'd also like to acknowledge the sponsors of the 2020 UpSkill Works Forum series. The Greater Houston Partnership and UpSkill Houston would like to thank our gold level sponsors, Houston Community College, the Merrick family of companies, Texas Mutual, and Winstead PC. Our silver level sponsors include Accenture, AT&T, CenterPoint Energy, HCA Houston Healthcare, Lone Star College, and San Jacinto College. Thank you to our sponsors for your support of UpSkill Houston's work. And I'd now like to introduce Kurt Ewan, who serves as Houston Community College's Vice Chancellor for Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. Kurt will be introducing today's session and our guests. Welcome, Kurt, and thank you to Houston Community College for being one of those sponsors of this series.
Thank you, Peter. I'm happy to be here. And let me start by saying, on behalf of our Chancellor, Dr. Maldonado, that Houston Community College is proud to partner with you and with UpSkill Houston in supporting these virtual sessions on important workforce topics for the Houston region. Today, we are fortunate to have two leaders from the Texas Workforce Commission to share with us some new programs to help individuals develop the skills Texas and the Houston region needs to be competitive and due to the impacts of COVID-19. First, I'd like to introduce Courtney Arbour, who is the Director of the Workforce Development Division at the Texas Workforce Commission. In this role, Courtney provides oversight and support for workforce services administered and operated at 28 local workforce development boards, which includes services under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, temporary assistance for needy families, employment and training, and supplemental nutrition assistant program, employment and training, among others. Courtney also directs the administration of multiple state-operated programs that include adult education and literacy, apprenticeship, the Texas Veterans Leadership Program, and others. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Dale Robertson, who is the Interim Director of the Employer Initiatives Division at the Workforce Commission. In this role, Dale is responsible for connecting businesses with value-added workforce solutions. Dale and his team are currently working with local businesses, community colleges, workforce development boards, and economic development partners to develop customized training projects for the Skills Development Fund, Self-Sufficiency Fund, and the Jobs and Education for Texans or JET programs. Specifically, today's topic will be addressing two new TWC programs that are focused on improving the skills of individuals. One is a special program for the Skills Development Fund, and the other one is focused on reskilling opportunities for individuals on unemployment insurance. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Dale and Courtney, and I'll turn it back over to Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Kurt. I really appreciate it. And as you know, we really appreciate the partnership with all of our community college partners. And Courtney and Dale, thanks for taking the time today. So let's really jump into our conversation. What I thought we could do is to provide our audience with an overview of these two new TWC programs, and then we can get to the details. So Dale, can you briefly describe the Skills Development COVID-19 Special Initiative and why was it created?
Thank you, Peter, for having us on. We appreciate the work that you're doing there and the Greater Houston Partnership. You know, TWC looks forward always to partner with you all in the Gulf Coast region to share information. I also like to thank Kurt for the introduction as well. Great work in partnership with Houston Community College. As you mentioned, I'm Dale Robertson, I'm Interim Director of the Office of Employer Initiatives. And specifically your question about the Skills Development Fund COVID-19 Special Training Initiative. That program in particular was designed here at TWC at the direction of our Workforce Commission. We're led by 3 commissioners, plus our executive director, Chairman Brian Daniel, representing the public, Commissioner Julian Alvarez, who represents the labor, and Commissioner Aaron Demerson, who represents employers, and of course, Mr. Ed Cerner, our executive director. We were directed to look at opportunities in light of COVID-19 to utilize our funding availability. These are existing skills development funds that allow us to quickly partner with colleges and workforce boards across the state to meet the needs of businesses for rapid training as a result of COVID-19. Some of these funds were directed at businesses that were retooling, whether they were moving from making certain products, whether it was alcohol and beer and now making hand sanitizers, or whether they were making clothing items and now they're making face masks. Or more specifically, we've had companies that were involved in other electronic product manufacturing, and they were moving into ventilator manufacturing. So a lot of rapid changes in the industry to meet the needs that came about because of COVID-19. So we identified up to $10 million that we had available in the Skills Development Fund, which again, state general revenue funds, that could be used to support training initiatives. And we developed a very quick application process. When you talk about collaboration, this was a collaboration between Courtney and my team and the agency to come up with an application process that was easy and quick for the colleges and workforce boards to complete, and an even simpler processes for businesses to partner with those entities to identify their workers who needed training, whether it's their workers that they still had on board, or those they newly hired, or workers they had furloughed and intended to bring them back to help them with training. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but we also focus on the individuals who've been laid off and potentially have are not attached to an employer anymore and need to be upskilled to return to work. So the impetus was COVID-19 to move really fast, make funding available to local communities across the state, and to address the needs of businesses and workers to help our economy rebound as quickly as possible during and post-COVID.
And Courtney, kind of the same question. You've announced this rapid skills enhancement opportunity. So describe it briefly, and why is it important and why it was created?
Okay, great, Peter. And again, like Dale said, thank you so much for having us today. A lot going on and some good work. So we appreciate being able to share it with your audience today. The commissioners at the Texas Workforce Commission have explored different options, different funding options outside of all the normal programs that are offered throughout the year in response to COVID-19, recognizing that while a person's first thought may not be, I should upskill right now, that we know it's a really good time to do that. And given all the changes in the economy, the more information we can get out to people, and the more we can encourage them to seize this opportunity to increase their skills to help them into their next job, the better. And so in addition to the skills COVID project that Dale just mentioned, the commissioners asked staff to take a look at the funding that we had available and consider ways to bring training to the largest number of people as quick as possible. And so in April, the commissioners approved, it was in May, the commission approved the Skills Enhancement Project. And through this project, we have gone into contract with a couple of vendors who provide online coursework, both technical coursework toward demand occupations and industry certifications, and also a lot of workplace skills, or what some people call soft skills. The idea here in doing it online is that while our workforce solutions offices around the state, and by the way, there are 180 of them, they're still providing services, while they continue to work with community and technical colleges to provide training help people upskill. We also know that not everyone right now is accessing those services. We have over 1 million unemployment insurance recipients in the state. So this project allows us to provide information to every unemployment insurance claimant in the state of Texas, and that outreach has already begun. Next week, if you're a claimant on this call or you know one, they're going to be hearing from us next week to provide information about these online tools. And in that, we are recommending that people go into these online platforms and consider taking a look. There are thousands of course options here, 4,000 to 5,000 course options in each of the 2 platforms that I'll very briefly mention. But we'll be sending information out to everyone in Texas who is receiving unemployment at the time and asking them to go in. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Lauren, I'll talk about some of the other resources. But first, let me just say, Metrics is one of the companies we're working with. Coursera is the other. Both provide occupational specific coursework and information about industry certifications, in addition to all of the soft skills. So again, claimants, every claimant in the state will have access to this, and we'll be nudging them with emails along the way, and staff in local offices will be contacting them along the way to find out if they're having any challenges. Do they need some help finding courses that match their interests, and also providing information about high demand occupations. We are not only encouraging people to go into these systems and just take classes randomly, but this slide shows some of the tools we are encouraging unemployment insurance claimants and really anyone in the general public to take time to look at right now. We have a number of tools. Most of these are Texas Workforce Commission tools that use labor market information or other information to help with job search and labor market exploration. The Texas Career Check is a profiler. We are asking every person that's on unemployment right now and who is interested in improving their skills to go take this. See if there is something else that they have transferable skills that they might consider moving into a different occupation. This will help them decide that. And then there's a number of assessments and other websites listed here so that people can understand what's in demand in their area. We are providing as much updated information to the local workforce boards and to the claimants so that they know as this economy reopens and as industry rebounds, what are some good jobs for them to consider, what training would be of value to them, and what certifications might they want to consider. So there are some good tools there. There's also an email address that will be shared on one of these slides later for anyone who is interested in that project. Like I said, we'll be reaching out to every single recipient of unemployment insurance, but if there's questions, we're happy to take those also via the email address that we'll share.
Thank you, Courtney. And just as a reminder to our audience, we'll be responding to questions submitted via the chat function. I see we have some coming in. So if you have questions for either Courtney or Dale, please feel free to submit them. And one of the reasons we wanted to have both of you on is, as you know, Upskill Houston has created this region-wide collaborative and collective table of employers, educational institutions, and community organizations. And many of our community organizations work closely with Workforce Solutions to provide integrative and supportive services to individuals. And the rapid skills enhancement opportunities seem like something we should at least make them aware of to ensure they're supporting their client success. So Courtney, is there anything else you want to add to this in terms of what folks need to know about kind of the rapid skills enhancement? I know you covered a lot there.
I think I would just say that if anyone is working with, if there are colleges here that are working with folks that you know are on unemployment, or if you have a family member on unemployment, this is available to everyone. And we're making sure that they know, and we'll reach out to people more than once, but this is a really good opportunity to go in and select from thousands of courses that can really help them get a leg up to get to their next good job. Peter, you and I talked a little bit yesterday. Some people are in lifeboat jobs. This is an opportunity to get out of the lifeboat into a bigger boat. It's a good time when people are in between jobs to take especially no-cost resources and get in there and learn what they can to make them a strong candidate for the next job.
And we'll get into some of those trends and skills that we're seeing, but it really is, it does sound like it's a huge opportunity for individuals to brush up not only on those technical skills and the soft skills, but as we'll talk about, you know, the digital skills. The fact that we're all on a Zoom call is something else. And I guess one question that I wanted to come back to, Courtney, is one of the issues we continue to hear from partners is the digital divide that exists in communities across the state, which includes not only access to broadband, but access to hardware. Are you seeing any innovations or practices that community and education partners can use to help bridge this digital divide?
I think through COVID, nothing tests your system like a pandemic, right? And we did see people respond very quickly with some smart ideas. Even in the early weeks, you saw businesses posting on their front doors that they would leave their Wi-Fi on for students who needed to sit in the parking lot and do their homework, or other people. And I thought that was just a really interesting and creative community support that even business came up with very quickly in this process. We've also had workforce boards and adult education literacy providers exploring all kinds of different options about making laptops available to check out to their students who are enrolled in a program, portable MiFi tools to be checked out to students, and even some of our local workforce solutions offices, to use that earlier example, had their internet available, and they would post signage so that people who needed to come and look for work, even though the doors were closed, could be within a certain number of feet from the door and still access to be able to have internet or Wi-Fi. So I think we are seeing people really think creatively, particularly in the adult education and literacy world, and in our partnership with community colleges. Education providers have been pretty quick and clever in going virtual and expanding the services that they needed to make available where people are accustomed to bricks and mortar services. And where it was necessary, some who have had the resources to do that have been able to check, and I use the term check out, but almost like a library book system, have been making some of those tools available to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to participate. And I will just add this, Peter, our workforce solutions offices, I think I mentioned there's 183 in the state. They've all gone virtual. Some of them are now providing a mix of in-person and virtual. And in the next few weeks, all will reopen to in-person services for folks who otherwise cannot be served. We want to be safe and provide as much security as we can to our customers and our staff, but as needed, they will be open for in-person services by appointment for those who need it. And in the meantime, they are exploring, just like colleges and adult education providers, as many online options as they can and resources for students to access.
Well, thanks, Courtney. And Dale, I wanted to give you an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. I think as I was preparing for this, it seemed like this was really focused on essential businesses under kind of the federal law. And it also gives flexibility not only to partner with businesses that have a high demand training need, but also if there's high demand training, even though there may be where there's a labor shortage. Do you want to go a little more in detail, and then we'll take some questions?
Sure. So yeah, definitely. I mean, essentially we started off with essential workers and businesses that are in that arena. And when you look at the information that was provided by the Department of Homeland Security and their Cybersecurity Infrastructure Services Administration, they pretty much defined all industries and sectors as essential. And so that opened it up quite a bit for us that, just about any business in Texas that had impact, and whether they were directly retooling because of COVID-19, and many are, of course, but maybe they're doing some of the related work that they would potentially need training for their workers. So we've seen, and then of course we've seen, as I mentioned in the opening, individuals who've been laid off. Courtney said over 1 million UI claimants. A lot of those folks may not go back to the jobs they had before. And in order to go into a job, we, in working with our partners, colleges and workforce boards, directed them to look at the in-demand jobs in their communities. So on one hand, you have in-demand based on the labor data that we have that identify the jobs. The other hand, we have businesses that are actually posting jobs now that they have openings for, and in working with that information, that in partnership with local workforce solutions office and our TWC data that Courtney mentioned, to identify where those opportunities are and train for those. So a big part of it is definitely encouraging individuals to take this opportunity to upskill, whereas they may not have had the opportunity or the time in the past. If you were to look at a bright side of this, is now is an opportunity to take the opportunity to assess where you are, where your career has been, and where would you like it to go, utilizing the information we have. You can take advantage of the Skills Development Fund program or the Skills Enhancement opportunity.
There also seem to be some flexibility that allows businesses to partner directly with the Workforce Board to potentially use a third-party provider or do internal trainings. Is there anything you want to kind of expand on? Because we have a number of employers on the call as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. One of the, I mean, again, with the approval of our commissioners and direction, we were able to ask that, with Workforce Solutions participating, and those are our local workforce boards. In Houston, it's the Workforce Solutions of Gulf Coast, and you have several in the surrounding area. They're able to also provide access these funds up to $250,000 each, and whether it's the community college or a Workforce Solutions, they can ask for $250,000, and they can partner directly with a business to provide training. Typical training process under a regular skills grant, we would have a mix of training by the training provider, which usually is a community college, and or the business may participate in training and providing maybe there's proprietary training needs that they have. In this case, we've opened it up as wide as we possibly can and said that if the business is coming to us with the partnership with the college or the workforce board, and they need to do 100% of the training for their workers, and it's reasonable and within cost, et cetera, we would approve that type of training as well. And it allows the boards to partner with a college or as well, or partner with a third-party entity. And so we know we've been reached out to by a number of training professionals across the state and different companies, organizations that do training. They've participated in some way or the other. Now they have the opportunity to also partner with a workforce board or a community college and provide training to businesses and individuals.
No, that's innovative and flexible, so thank you. So now I'm going to turn to the audience. There are a number of different questions in here. And so I thought I would, one that showed up several times, yes, we will share the slide deck. We know that the information that's there is really important. And this is one I think is really more directed to you, Dale. Does the COVID funding initiative follow the same 6-month blackout period for reapplication for another grant as regular SDF projects require?
Yeah, that sounds like someone who is really aware of the Skills Development Fund program asking that question. So of course it just depends. I mean, under the Skills COVID, we anticipate that businesses may have one round of training, then they may need some other training. So there's no 6-month blackout within the COVID-19 per se. Technically what we did was we suspended regular skills contracting on the regular grants where, you did a project, you deliver training for a whole host of your existing and new employees. And under that normal process, regular skills, we would say once a business has participated in training and that contract period is over, they wait 6 months to come back for additional training, or they can come back right away if they're going to train new workers and create new jobs. So the 6 month was only to for businesses that wanted to do continuing training for existing workers. Wait 6 months, but if they were coming back and they were creating new jobs, there was no waiting period. And under COVID-19, we expect with this special training initiative, we may have businesses as they continue to retool and get back up to speed, may need training and as they bring on new employees to continue training. So we expect to see, potentially multiple applications from the same business partner.
No, good. And Courtney, there are a couple in here related to kind of, the program you described. Everyone picked up Coursera. What was the other program? And then there's a question about how is it accessed?
Okay, Metrics is the other company that we've partnered with, Coursera and Metrics, to answer that question. And both companies are setting up kind of a separate front door for Texas unemployment insurance recipients. And so when we send the email out to the claimant, we'll provide them a link. We're asking them first to fill out a complete registration and work in Texas, which will help them think through all of the skills they've had in the last few years. And that process really prompts them to build a good resume and think through their skills, which will help them as they go through the next assessment and consider what they want to do next. But the answer on how they will know about it is that we're sending them an email. Every unemployment insurance claimant provides us with an email. We're using that, so it's recent, and we know that it'll reach them, and we'll point them to the link.
And it's for all claimants, not just those within the last 30 days.
That's correct. It's all claimants.
There's a challenging question, and I suspect I already know the answer, Courtney, which is there a list of the courses that are going to be offered? And is there a link that folks can use to find the funding? But it sounds like you've got to be receiving the benefits, and then you'll find out the courses.
Actually, both of these companies have a pretty good website, which will provide you with the information I think you're looking for. And I'm sorry, it's Coursera.org, I believe, and metricslearning.com. But if you do Metrics Online Learning or Coursera Online Learning, you'll find them, and you will find course lists there. And all of the courses are available through the offering that we've got going.
Okay, well, that's great. And there's a question here, and I think it's more directed to Dale, but it may be kind of open to both of you. It's if an employee is working a 40-hour a week job, can they qualify for training after work hours using the skills development funding? And it sounds like it probably need to be an employer that is providing it to them.
That is correct. If under the skills, if that employer is wants that employee to obtain additional skills, and he or she is employed 40 hours a week, we would anticipate that employer would cover that employee while they're in training. In this case, where the person is already employed, our goal is to assist that employer with upskilling their existing or newly hired workers, whatever the new production may be or new processes may be.
And then there are a couple things in terms of what the public libraries here are doing, which is one, I think they're lending out hotspots and soon to lend out laptops as well. And so that's, obviously another innovation that's taking place here in Houston. I'm still checking. Someone asked about the application process for the Skills Enhancement Program. And it sounds like you've got to be a claimant and you'll just get the information.
That's correct. That's correct. We send information to every claimant. And I did want to comment, I saw, or reflecting back on your last question, in fact, it was the question of Dale, but I'll go ahead and say, because it applies here too, if a person goes back to work, once they've been outreached, we want them to go back to work, but they're still able to continue using the platform for as long as we have the contracts open. We want people to take full advantage and use it as long as we have access.
No, that's great. Thanks, Courtney. So Dale, there's a question. A company that may have an existing skills development fund grant, mostly for hands-on skills training, could it apply to do it virtually or do training virtually in parallel?
Yes. So if a company is in a current existing grant, we have been very flexible in amending those grants as well, extending them and allowing the company with the college partner, I guess, coming in and adding or amending the training plan that they'd initially been approved for to allow to go online or virtual as needed.
Because as you know, some of the issues that both the school districts and the community colleges and even employers are facing now is how to do effective social distancing when you're doing applied training, and it may require different tools to support it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it is very challenging right now, and we've heard from some of the colleges, training partners now, how challenging it is. But we've worked to sort of introduce information around what are those virtual platforms out there. There are companies or training providers now who have adapted or adopted virtual training methodology. Even for some of the more hands-on training, there are some ways that they are able to do that I think is very innovative. Some of our community colleges are already partnering some of these entities across the state, and I anticipate we'll see more of those.
And once again, here's another one. I think everyone's appreciative, Dale, that the flexibility is there. If they're trying to partner here, particularly with the local workforce board, is there a local contact for the program? I know you all have someone here in Houston, but should they talk to that person or?
So, yeah, for the skills development, the training COVID-19, the grantees in your area right now are San Jacinto College and Lone Star College and Houston Community College. The Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast is not one of our grantees for this particular program. So those three, at very least, are already have grants and have actually begun doing some training. So you can reach out to, usually this is in the continuing education department, whether you reach out to Lone Star Community College system or to Houston Community College or San Jacinto College district.
Okay. And Courtney, a couple questions and I'll put them together. Can young adults who have not yet entered the workforce but can't find employment access these trainings? And then do you have to be registered for the Selective Service Project to participate in the programs?
The answer to the young adult question, if they're a claimant, we will reach out to them. The project is funded with a funding source, and the goal was to help people that have been recently laid off to have the first shot at upskilling. And so I will answer that anyone who is receiving unemployment, regardless of age, will be provided information about this and nudged to, to please jump in. If there's a problem, let us know so we can help. The selective service question, I don't see that, Peter, but I think, am I understanding it's about selective service registration?
It says, do we have to have registered for the selective to participate in these programs? And I'm thinking it's selective service.
I think that's probably a question about eligibility for the type of federal funding we're using. And the answer is to this is no.
Okay.
The answer to that is no. Selective service is not required. Since all claimants are eligible population.
Yep. And Dale, are there any kind of employee retention metrics related in the grant?
So there are, and let me add also to my list of colleges in the area, Galveston College. So Galveston College is also a grantee and have funding available at this time. So we have a standard metrics that if an employee is trained, they are retained on the job for at least 90 days after the completion of training. And our target is 85% of those employees. So that's our standard metric for retention. We realize that we are in some uncharted territory as far as what's going to happen to employers a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road. And so we don't want anyone to be dissuaded by that seeming to be such a high retention rate. It's just our standard. And we take everything into consideration should they not meet that retention standard. So we're telling folks to move forward. We don't know exactly what the future looks like, but right now the goal is to get people back to work in an in-demand job, and with the goal that they retain that job with a great company that allows them to continue in their careers and the company to grow.
Yeah. And Courtney, there are a number of folks in the construction industry on the call, and I think they've already looked at Coursera and metrics, and there are not really any construction trade kind of programs there. I know you can't get everything, but I just wanted you to be aware that there was an observation on that.
Okay. I would want to look at both of them more carefully. I know we looked at metrics, well, both actually. Coursera really does offer more university type coursework in addition to the workplace skills, but metrics has a lot of workforce training. And so I know we looked at a number of different tools to try to find the broadest set of courses we could. And I think they may want to take another look at metrics just to take one more look to see if they don't find coursework that does apply. And then meanwhile, the local workforce boards continue to provide their normal Workforce Investment Opportunity Act training. Our adult education providers also offer integrated, if you're not connected with to the construction team that is on this call or anyone that's in that industry, the adult education providers in your area also don't just prepare people for their high school equivalency test. There's a growing interest federally and in the state of offering integrated models where you can work on your GED or your high school equivalency in addition to some specific occupational training. So if you're not sure who your adult ed provider is, you may want to look. Your workforce board will be able to connect you. We at TWC can connect you, but there's a lot of opportunity there in helping workers to get occupational specific, including construction. So there are a lot of options there, but I would just say take another look at metrics to see.
And I'm going to kind of close this out with a final question to Dale, because there are a number of different ones somewhat related. And one is around kind of third-party training partners and how do they, find a way to partner. And I think I kind of know the answer to that question. And then another question is related to, how do employers still need to pay their employees while they're attending grant-funded training? Okay,
good. So I'm going to act like, like the numbers keep going up, So I'm going to give a shout out to Wharton County Junior College as also a grant recipient. So we've got the region covered. So I wanted you to know that in terms of colleges. Now, regarding third-party training, we've encouraged community colleges, if they don't have the capacity to do a certain kind of training, it is perfectly acceptable, and we support them partnering with entities who can deliver the training that's needed now. If they don't have the virtual platform available, then do so. If someone else has the space that is available and the type of training facility that's needed, they can partner with those individuals. As you mentioned earlier about social distancing, they just have to get creative. We're encouraging that creativity and partnering differently than perhaps we've done before. So if there's a third-party vendor out there who has training, we're encouraging to reach out to the community colleges in the area. Aside from, we've awarded close to $9.8 million of the 10 million already across the state. Like I say, we have a wide breadth of coverage. 10 of those grantees are workforce boards across the state, and the other 49 or so, or 39 are community colleges. So there's an opportunity to reach out and offer your services as a third-party training provider to any of those entities that have funding at the present time. And the second part of your question, what was that again?
Do they need to be paid while they're in training?
Oh yeah. So so there are two parts to this really. If a business is bringing their employees to train, and their new or existing employees, that's employer required training. So under Federal Labor Standards Act, that would be required that they provide that training on the clock. So that's employer desired training and required training. So yes, they would be paid during training. However, the second part of our program allows for individuals who are not attached. So, so in that case, they may not be getting paid by an employer at all. They might be on unemployment insurance. So it depends on the relationship. If they have a business partner coming to the table with training for existing newly hired or existing workers, yes, on the clock training. Folks who are just individuals, that's not a requirement.
I'm going to take the next, maybe 7 minutes for us to have a conversation, because we're fortunate to have, the two of you, Dale and Courtney, because you get to see trends across the state of Texas. And I know, labor market information is coming out, monthly, and you get to see kind of the mixed story that's being told that's both positive, but probably is concerning. And so what trends are you seeing? And then I want to come to this question that I kind of hinted at, which is, automation technologies and increased digital skills are coming. And we'll come to that question later, but I wanted to see, what are you all seeing kind of in the trends across Texas as it relates to the labor market information? And I know you probably are going like, no one knows.
You want me to go? You want to go, Dale?
I don't know. You might start first.
Hot potato. It will come as no surprise that everything about the situation has been fluid. Recently, we've seen another uptick in some of the layoff activity. we are looking at labor market information. One thing that's tricky about it, you know this, all of you know this, that people can post jobs knowing that they may not fill it right this minute. They're just sort of checking things out. So we are keeping a very close eye on the jobs that are posted in the state, in all the job matching or job boards. And we do see some trends there. We see increases in some of the occupations in various industries. It's hard to know if those are just employers who are thinking ahead, let me get some candidates in the pool so that when I'm ready, I can schedule those interviews, or if they're trying to interview right now. We have a lot of anecdotal information, and you can talk to an employer and get it. But when you think about our wonderful state and hundreds of thousands of employers, it's hard to draw hard lines. We are seeing some pretty promising things in the job posting information. We also, because we administer the unemployment insurance program, can see as people as they stop filing unemployment, you can kind of trend that and you can make assumptions that not everyone stops filing for unemployment because they have a job, but that's one of the, that is the leading reason. And so we have good data to help us, and we are providing as much of that as we can down to the local offices, especially so that when they're working with claimants, because it's our local Workforce Solutions offices who are helping these folks get back to work, and we're providing them as much as we can so that they know how to best serve someone whose occupation is already opening back up versus those that are not.
Yeah. If I were to add, I mean, and that's great, what Courtney just shared with you. We look at really what's happening. What kinds of applications are we getting in for skills training? And it varies. It's across industries right now. We've been training folks in manufacturing sector. We're training folks who are in information technology still. And especially now we're seeing some trends. A lot of people are looking for training in how to improve their processes. We're seeing a lot of lean office or lean manufacturing type of training. And it goes without saying, of course, we're seeing a lot of requests for, safety and health and sanitization and so forth. As workers come back into the workplace, needing to know those kinds of needs. We had a call a couple of weeks ago, and this may lead into your next question, with webinar with some folks from the information technology. And while they spoke a lot about various jobs and skill sets needed by information technology, and from their perspective, they have high demand. The demand for cybersecurity workers, for cyber infrastructure, you name it, network support have increased. And we see some of that in the data that Courtney referred to, but at the very top is still healthcare, nurses and retail folks and so forth in job postings. So, we're being flexible. We're being driven by what locally folks are telling us, what businesses are coming to the table with and saying their needs are, and supporting those as much as we possibly can with the funding we've made available.
So the final question, and we'll take kind of the last sets of questions that have been posed there. But it is, kind of our observation is the pandemic has accelerated kind of something that was already happening, which is how do we integrate these automation technologies like Internet of Things and robotics and machine learning and all of that into the workplace. And it's just clear that digital skill sets, the baseline is you need to have proficiency in the basic productivity tools like word processing, Excel, custom CRM. What are you all seeing? And are you seeing that same acceleration that I think we're experiencing?
Yeah, right.
I would just say that while it's hard to draw hard lines on which occupations are, quote, bouncing back fastest and others are not, I will say that software development and computer related occupations are in these lists. When you look at the postings, you look at the increases in postings in February versus now, or even last year versus now, we do see some small increases there in all things computer related, specifically software development. So I think what every organization is dealing with is probably what you've dealt with. We all had tools for doing things virtually, but we weren't signing every contract virtually, and now we are. And we weren't having every meeting virtually, but now we are. So I think every business is looking in whatever ways they can to increase their use of technology, which is driving a lot of the postings. We believe it's driving a lot of the postings we are seeing, but those are very definitely growing right now.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Again, referring to the forum we recently had, we had a speaker from Microsoft, and they run a program called TechSpark, and they support businesses across the state and the country really in terms of their training needs. And he said that they are seeing 2 years of digital transformation taking place in the last 2 months. You know, and so that's how rapid things have changed as far as technology needs across the all industries. And another thing that was interesting from one of our speakers, they represented RealPage, which is based in Richardson, Texas, and have location all over the country and the world, is that as they move into this platform, they mentioned that they went to 98% work at home, teleworking. And their challenge is now, you know, and they have digital people. I mean, they have technologists and so forth working there, engineers, et cetera. But now it's collaboration. You know, how do we collaborate on these new platforms when we are not in the same office space on a day-to-day basis? And so as I look at some of the trainings that we have recently approved as well, you know, it's technology, but it's also some of the softer skills that, you know, make sure that the technology, and you can communicate well, you can collaborate with teams, et cetera, also supporting that. So it's very interesting. And even how that training is done and what's covered within the content is changing as well as it relates to our new normal.
No, this has been helpful. And like I said, I was going to return to some of the questions to make sure we didn't leave anybody unanswered. But I'm also going to do a shameless plug. Next week, we'll be releasing a report that we've been working on called Navigating the Changing Nature of Work. And it really is about this conversation related to how is automation going to change kind of pathways for careers? What's the importance of improving the overall digital skills, but to Dale's point, essential skills? And then how do we begin kind of where you started, Courtney? How do we help people find the adjacent careers that propel them forward and not onto kind of the, turning wheel that they don't get anywhere? And so we're going to hopefully use that as continue the conversation here in Houston. So a couple final questions. One is, if a company asks a person to take a buyout option to retire early, I'm assuming they won't be eligible for training since they won't be receiving unemployment insurance.
In the skills enhancement project, that's correct, because only those that are receiving unemployment, if they somehow become part of a skills grant, I don't know what will happen with this person next, but there are all kinds of other options available through the workforce system and the community college system and the adult education and literacy world, though, for a person in this situation.
Yeah.
Can I just add something to your last comment?
Sure.
One of the things that I think, and I'll be quick, but lifelong learning, future of work, and the digital transformation, what we're all of us have to embrace is the idea that the pace of change is going to be faster and faster. So it's that willingness to keep learning and keep growing and stay on these online portals or enroll in the community college course or whatever. And so the more we can tell people that now, I think, regardless of topic, the better we'll be. Our young people need to know it also, that it's not about one degree and you're finished.
No, and that's part of our message is we're like, it's going to be continual learning and growth. And to your point, how do you also ensure there's self-efficacy? So people go like, I can actually be successful in this and continue the journey. And then there's a final question, and then we'll kind of close out. Any specific programs for the military?
We have a couple out there for the military. We had a skills for transition that's still working. In some places, I believe, have a contract. College Credit for Heroes, and most of our programs, military personnel or separated military individuals or their spouses are priority services. They just have to contact us and get with the local workforce solutions, and they'll be made aware of all the services and priority services for veterans.
We also have a program called Texas Veterans Leadership Program at the Workforce. and we partner with the Veterans Commission, another state agency. And between the two, we have a lot of staff throughout the state who help veterans, who will promote these opportunities to veterans in their day-to-day.
And kind of one final clarification for Dale, and then we'll kind of close out. And once again, I really appreciate you all taking the time. And I think you hinted at this, but I also want to kind of make sure we addressed it very specifically. There was a question, can COVID funding pay for the development of instruction that was hands-on but now needs to be remote? In the case that, you know, generally it's developed to be hands-on and now they got to adapt it to be remote.
You know, with the COVID funding, we're not only providing direct training costs, we're also providing some administrative costs. So if they need to develop a curricula, they can certainly utilize the funding that they have to do so.
And I think you also have very specific FAQs on your website, and we'll have the link up shortly, that gets into a lot of the details of the application and what's covered, what's not covered, what's the administrative fee piece of it, correct? Yeah,
that's correct. And also I want to just point out that for the Gulf Coast region, we have Christina DeWitty, who is our stationed there as our regional representative. And we're glad to share her information if she hasn't already put it in the chat. But Christina will work with any college or workforce board that needs assistance in thinking through how to participate in this program, or what some of the questions they may have that perhaps we didn't answer in the FAQs that we can take back. I mean, we're being very flexible. We're responding to questions that come up that we had not thought about, and finding answers and responding as quickly as possible.
No, so I really appreciate it. Once again, Courtney, Dale, it has really been a pleasure, and I look forward to kind of continuing our conversations as this evolves and as we try to put Texas back to work and Houston back to work. So really, I thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Once again, for the audience, we are at this inflection point to the pandemic, and I'm asking that you do what you can as leaders to ensure the safety of all Houstonians and of your own family, friends, and coworkers. As our audience will see on the screen, we've also listed on the next slide kind of what the important resources we've discussed today. And as many of you know, we continue to bring these series to you. So thank you for participating in the UpSkill Works Forum series. Also, thank you to our gold and silver underwriters and sponsors. In the coming weeks, we will have a couple new topics coming along the way. Obviously, we kind of touched on it, the great skills that veterans bring to the workplace. So we'll be developing a session around that. And then related to the report we're releasing, we'll have Marcela Escobari on July 29th from the Brookings Institution to share her insights about realism, about reskilling. And this is really related to kind of what's going on in terms of the change in our economy being a much more digital, automated economy. And so we really appreciate you all taking the time today. And as these forums are scheduled and the specifics, we'll send notices out so you can register online at houston.org/events. So have a great day. Thank you.